Hey folks, my name's Chuck Black and I am explaining things related to programming and software development. And I'm going to be doing a few lessons on the topic of software design. And today's topic has to do with designing things in a loosely coupled manner. Let's get started. So what do we mean when we say your software component should be loosely coupled? Well, here's a picture of Quokka Prime. And this is a loosely coupled software architecture. You can see over here the device monitor, host scan, etc. Are communicating to the Quokka server using this RESTful API. That means that my device monitor doesn't have to know about how my Quokka server is implemented. It could be implemented in Python using Flask, as we talked about. It could be implemented in Python using Django. It could be implemented in Java or in C# or in any of a number of other languages. It doesn't matter because the interface that it's using is loosely coupled and it's defined by this RESTful API. Furthermore, the device monitor, host monitor, etc. don't have to worry about the implementation of the database. This database could be SQL, it could be Mongo, it could be just internal data structures, and we've done all of those in the 52 weeks of Python. So these functions over here don't need to worry about how the server or the database is implemented. Furthermore, the user interfaces that we have don't need to worry about that either. So we have these terminal-based user interfaces for host, service, device. We also implemented a true user interface using a browser and React and Material UI, etc. That didn't worry or depend on how this was implemented. It certainly didn't worry about how the monitors were implemented. It didn't worry about how the database was implemented. So in that sense, all of these things are loosely coupled. And the same, of course, is true down here with the messaging stuff that we did. Now, this is not just theory. I actually implemented, if we go through this, we'll see that I actually implemented one of these monitors in the Java programming language. That's part of 52 weeks of Python. And it seamlessly integrated with this RESTful API, and it didn't matter whether the implementation was done in Java or some other language, and it didn't care that the actual Quokka server was done in Python. There was no issue because these are loosely coupled. And not only did I implement this in Java, but I also implemented a version in Go. And I'm actually thinking about implementing a Quokka server in C# just because I'd like to learn that. And as you probably can surmise at this point in time, because of our loose coupling, what this means is that I will not need to make any changes to the user interface, to the monitors, to any of these tools that are doing port scan, capture, traceroute, etc. I'll have to worry a little bit about the database interface because that will be different, but the database itself can still be Mongo or SQL or whatever. So loose coupling, extremely important way to design your software applications. As an aside, if you happen to be interested in how I implemented Java and Go as applications that communicated with the Quokka server, then you can go to my channel. This is my channel, and you could type in Go, and if I type in Go here, you can see there's a lesson, Go introduction, and there's one on host monitoring. So this is an overview. This is the actual host monitoring implementation. So you can do either of those. You can also do, type in Java here, if you can spell it correctly. Apparently I can't. And you can see, again, I have a Java introduction, and then I have a Java host monitor implementation. Those are long, as you can see, but if you are interested, go ahead and check it out. So you may ask yourself, who would ever be so stupid as to implement something, some software product or program in a tightly coupled manner? Well, I can give you one example, and that example would be me. So my first implementation of Quokka, I created threads within my Flask server. And in those threads, I did device monitoring, I did compliance monitoring, host services, summarization, etc. It was all running within the Flask service. There's a number of reasons why I did that initially, but that is an example of tight coupling. If I wanted to change my host or device monitoring or whatever, then I would need to do it within the context of my Flask thread that I had created using Python. On the other hand, when I began to develop the 52 Weeks of Python course and I got around to actually implementing Quokka in this course, which I hadn't intended to do, I saw that it would be easier for me to teach if I implemented host and device and service monitoring independently. And when I did that, I realized, hey, there's some advantages to doing this. So in my 52 Weeks of Python course, I actually created this slide, which shows the difference. Here's my threads that are doing monitoring that are separate and independent, and they are definitely not running inside that application. And I would not have been able to do things like this if I was using the tightly coupled way of doing it before. So yeah, I'm an example of how not to implement it, or how all of us can fall prey to implementing things in a more tightly coupled way than maybe we should. So I'm going to demonstrate this to you in action right now. Now in this window, I have my host monitor, the Python version, running, and as you can see down here, it is keeping up to date with this time that you see up there, and it's updating everything. You can also see Quokka Prime server receiving the REST request. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to terminate this, and I'm going to go to the spot where I've implemented a Go version of the host monitor. So I'm going back to my root directory. I'm going to go to Quokka Prime. I'm going to go to monitors, and I'm going to go to the folder called Go. Now in Go, I have this host monitor, and as you can see here, this is Visual Studio Code. This is my Go version that I implemented a while back, and I've had to make a couple of changes on it to make it run on this Mac that I'm running. But basically what I'm going to do, and you can see now, those updated at 58 minutes after the hour. I'm going to just be quiet, and I'll speed this up, and we'll wait and see that these are not actually getting updated at all now that the host monitor is not actually running. So as you can see, this has not been updated at all. Now we're going to run the Go version of this program. This is how I run it. You can see over here the Quokka server is getting put requests. It you got GET requests as well. So we've been updating things, and let's see if we've got, yeah, we've got new 1604. Everything has been updated with the new response time values. I think the values are actually probably not correct because I'm not parsing it the same way that I did in Python, but I just wanted you to see that yes, indeed, we can actually, because of loose coupling, we can be running a Go program with our architecture, our loosely coupled architecture, and it slots in perfectly fine. And I could write it in Java, C#, Go, Python, whatever I choose. Well, that's been my explanation of what it means when software is loosely coupled. Hopefully it made sense to you. If not, or if you have questions or comments, give me a shout. And as always, thanks for listening.